You have to decide to start because, and actually start. Because I've heard people that they've had this plan. I've known people that have been on these albums and they've been working on the album. They've never finished them. So you have to just decide to start. And then right along with that is to put some sort of date on finishing and actually launching.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com and grab some time with us to chat. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Deborah Johnson, and as a quick introduction to Deborah, so she always thought she was going to go into music. I think started teaching music at the age of 13, taught piano to kids and then to their parents, went into college majoring in voice and piano, and then went into education, I think, for a period of time, taught for a couple of years, and then went and did some graduate work. Also went and did, I think, some touring, if I remember right, with the musically related. Married a professional or baseball player, had a family, did the tours off and on, went and did some work with Disney, and then expanded into speaking and did that for part of the business. Also got into set up systems for marketing and promotions and other things, and that kind of leads us where she's at today. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Deborah.
Oh, thank you, Devin. That was quite an introduction. I don't know if I could have done my life that fast. That was great.
Well, I just condensed your journey into 30 seconds. So now let's unpack that a bit. So why don't you kind of tell us how your journey got started, and let's hear a little bit about that.
Well, if we want to start way back, of course, yeah, at the age of 13, I did not want to watch the five kids next door or pull weeds. So I thought I could start teaching piano. And this is going to date me a bit because it was 50 cents that I charged for teaching one of the neighbor kids piano. And then her mom wanted to start taking. So, okay, I was teaching adults at the age of 13. And it pretty much took me all the way through high school and even my college. It was a great way to earn extra income, pay all my bills. That was great. And that was, fun. And yeah, I always did think, I'm going to go into music. And of course I did. I've worked as a professional musician for 25, 30 years at least, and done international touring, done touring all over the United States, done a lot of headline concert work as well. So, yeah, it's what I love. Go ahead.
Over touring. So you went, and I think after you went to college, you went into teaching for a couple of years. Now, is that musical teaching, high
Yes.
school, elementary, kind of what teaching did you go into before going back to do graduate work?
Yes, and actually, I was majoring kind of in performance, but I got pushed a bit into education because it's a sweet spot for me as well. So I got the top award coming out of Cal State Northridge for the top student teacher of the year, and it was kind of a surprise. I always show up at these meetings or these, events, and then, I had no idea that was coming. So, and I was offered contracts when a time that contracts were not being offered. And I thought, I just really don't want to teach. I don't want to be in a classroom. And I could have taught high school right out and didn't want to do. So I said
Now,
no.
one question, just when you were making that decision, deciding, hey, I don't want to teach, what was it? Was it more of, hey, this isn't enjoyable to me, or I wanted to, go in a different direction, or kind of, because a couple of years got it, or you obviously good at it, got a reward, got an offer. So what was the motivation, or saying, I want to do something different? Kind of, how did you figure that out?
Well, part of that was, I liked the freelance lifestyle. I didn't want to really be in a classroom. And some of the offers I got were in inner city schools that really needed somebody like me, like high schools. But I knew how intense that was. And I thought, I don't know if I want to lock myself into any sort of contract like that. So, I didn't accept those, but I ended up accepting one. Because I was living at home and, it was like, okay, going to the beach every day and just doing my freelance stuff was not working at that point. I had a college degree. So I was offered this contract locally, taught junior high, music and drama. And so, which I was really not totally prepared for teaching drama. I will just tell you that. They put me in that spot, and it was not easy, but I made it through that year and decided, okay, after that year, I am never doing this again. I quit. And then the next year came around, and I was offered another contract at my old junior high school. And I could not say no to my old principal who was still there. And that was a telling sign that people stay there forever. So again, but I said, I will do this part time. I will do all your music groups. And I recruited a boys chorus. I will still never forget. I did not have a boys chorus. So I thought, oh, I love boys choruses. So I went out on the football field, and this is junior high school, okay? And went out there and I recruited 25 guys, and I got the top player first. And I looked like a junior hire still, coming out of college. I just looked really young. So I went out there, recruited 25 guys, and I tell you what, we had a great little year. I had them doing, this is gonna date me, I had them doing Saturday Night Fever, and they did it. I cannot even believe they did it. They did the movements and everything for me. But again, I started doing my graduate work then. I thought, this is not where I want to be forever. I don't want to be, this principal here forever in this school. I feel like there's more. There's more for me to do. And what do you do at that point? You just go back to school. Like, what do you do? I didn't really know. I kind of, I wasn't in a strong relationship yet that I felt like was a serious one. So I had the freedom to do that, and I could still tour if I'd like to. And so that's what I did. I did that part-time, and then I really quit for sure at the end of that. And I ended up teaching college later. I taught at even graduate schools and all of that later. But that was a different level. That was fine with the graduate work. But at this point, I just appreciate the people that stay in those positions for a long time. And they're meant for it. I just didn't feel like I was really meant for staying in that place. There was more just because of that creative juice I had, I guess. That's what it is. This is all about the inventive journey.
So now you stayed in one form of teaching for for a good period of time, in different forms of fashion, as well as going back to school. Now you finish up the graduate school and finish up that program, and coming out of that, what was kind of that next step, or where did you decide to go from there?
Well, I did marry a professional baseball player. He was in the minor leagues, and I had one more semester of graduate school left. And they gave me a break to be able to finish it, and because I wanted to go off with him to spring training. So we did that. And it was his last spring training. He had hurt his arm. He was a pitcher. He'd worked with what now is, they've called him a different team, of course, now, but he was with the Indians. So we went there, and I think I had probably watched one baseball game in my whole life. I mean, I was not in tune with the sports. I did not come from a sports family, but I was in entertainment, and I knew entertainment, and both of us knew entertainment. So we got along great. And so, yeah, we met and married. I would not suggest this to our kids in 4.5 months. And so we were there, and I took that time. He was released, but then we traveled around the country. We knew a lot of people. So both of us did. So we did that, and then finished graduate work after that and started a family. How about that? But I continued to teach privately and did some touring, some flyouts, but a lot fewer because we had 3 sons back to back. And so that was, it's pretty consuming at that point of life. And so the creative juices kept going, kept writing, kept doing all of that. I was performing all along here. My sisters and I performed together. We did a lot of work. We did a lot of performing in churches, a lot of area and fairs and all that sort of thing. So we did a lot of that. And so I kept writing for that and arranging. So music was still a big, big part of my life, definitely.
So now, and I think that's amicable. That's great that you're putting a focus on the family. You're wanting to make sure you're there for the kids and as they're growing. Because I'm a father of four. My wife stays at home full time. She was a nurse before that, but I think that there is definitely a benefit, if you in circumstances to allow to be able to be there as your kids are growing up. Now, as your kids grow up and they're now kind of coming out of the, getting out of the house, and they're raised, so to speak, and now that they're, still, certainly there for them, but you have a bit more time on your hands, and you're thinking, okay, now what do I want to do next? Kind of, how did you re-engage, or what did you do after that?
Well, I had started doing club work. I was still teaching a lot privately, and it's something I could do while my kids were growing. And I wanted that freedom because I wanted to be around. Somebody has to raise your kids, period. And so we made that sort of choice. And so I did some flyouts. A flyout is where you go someplace. It's not a big tour. It's a flyout. So I did some of that work, but I didn't really start concentrating more on my solo shows until the kids were a little bit older. And we had three sons. They were 4 years apart. So it's like rough and tumble. It's constant, with their sports, their activities. And they're all, and now they're all launched. Very, very thankful, believe me. Very thankful when you get to that stage. But I've always loved, I wrote a song called You Can't Buy Back the Years. You can't buy back the years, period. With your kids, with your parents, with any of your people that are close to you. So, I didn't want to waste those years and go and look back with regret. And so the decisions I made creatively and with my career and my inventive journey were to make sure that I was able to, enjoy those. And my husband made some of those we're still together, same choices as well to make sure that he was around enough. So now, good for you.
No, and I think that's great, and I think that's definitely sounds like a fun place. And so now, kind of bringing us towards today. So I think as you mentioned, we talked before, kids are raised. You've now got into a bit more of public speaking and doing other things, and you also, I think, had a stint in Disney. So kind of catch us up now, kind of where that takes you to today.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting, kind of looking at this path. So much of life and business is who you know and your relationships. And I was starting to do this club work, and now you're calling for subs around. And there's a certain group of us in Los Angeles and LA area that we are piano vocalists. We can do both. So, and we're women. And so we have worked. We work. We're hired for a lot of private parties and events. And of course, I was doing my solo shows at that point too. So I was doing some flyouts and doing some stage work because I put some shows together. And so that was a lot of fun all over the country. So, but in getting in Disney, it was one of my very best friends. She's become a very best friend, that I had asked her to sub for me in a job because we sub for each other. And she ended up, I had been trying to get in with Disney, and you send stuff sometimes to these companies over and over and over, and you never hear anything back. And she says, do you know what? I have this gig with Disney. Would you like to do it for me? Would you like to sub for me? And that was it.
Sure.
And I worked for them 25, 30. I mean, it's, with an organization like that, and it's, and some of these they're not my highest paying gigs. They're not my type of, but I love working for the organization. So you show up on time, you're prepared, you look good, and you don't take advantage of, what the freedoms that you have there, and you're good. And they're not going to do a lot of different changes unless they have to cut back in areas. But I've been an independent contractor. So, I just signed a new contract where you feel like you sign your life away pretty much with those big organizations. But, they have to cover themselves too legally. So, yeah, but that was it, Devin. And it's so interesting how we can just try to push our way so much into areas. And sometimes it's just this relationship and it's like, that was easy. And if you're prepared, You need to be prepared. And that's a big point too, because some people, they try to get in and they're not prepared. So that's a big deal.
So now you work, so you get in, you finally get in with Disney after trying for a while and having the connection in your network to help you get in there. Do that for a
Yes.
while now. Are you still doing Disney? And then how did you get into kind of public speaking and engaging that as well?
That's a great question because I had worked so hard putting those solo shows together, and I was doing another headline act with two pianos, like a dueling piano, but it was a stage show and a headline act. So we did a lot of video, we did a lot, and just wonderful. A wonderful colleague, Waylon Picard, and we were doing this all over the country, huge arenas. We were having so much fun. But what happened was with the Great Recession and with corporations and some of those conferences, they weren't hiring us and they weren't hiring my show either. And so I started studying the market. What were they hiring? And what I found is that they were hiring mostly like tribute acts or older acts, name acts pretty much, but not the newer acts and more, kind of niched acts like mine and our act. But what they really were hiring was speakers. And it's like, oh, well, I could do that. I could, I could all, what do you speak about? What is this business? So I contacted one of my agents and I knew that she had hired speakers and went and visited her. And we went to Arizona and kind of sat in her living room. And I said, tell me about this speaking thing. Is this really a business? What is this? What, what do you do? So I started learning about that and started writing books, and I have absolutely loved it because I can combine the inventive journey of what I've done in media and music, and now I've turned it into more of a media company because I've got videos, I've got songs, like hundreds of songs, I've got musicals, all of this stuff I've written, but I can turn that experience and all of that into an overarch and combine that with speaking with a message, which is the hero inside, because we all have that creative place inside of us that just needs to come out.
No,
Yeah.
that's definitely sounds like, definitely a lot of fun things that you're able to accomplish, a lot of opportunities, a lot of fun along the way. So I think that brings us kind of to where you're at today. So now kind of looking, excuse me, a bit into the future, the next 6 to 12 months, where do you see things heading for you? What's the next part of the journey?
Well, I've been working extremely hard in putting a new book out. And so I kind of use that COVID time. And I'm an introvert anyway, but I really did miss people. Believe me, I'm an intentional extrovert, and so I get on a stage. I have so much fun, but I use that time to really really focus and to finish projects. It just takes that. I tell people, it's seat discipline. You have to focus to finish these projects. So I had this idea for kind of a different type of book, and so I really really used that time to be able to finish the book, but it's really a message of what I speak about as well. So, and I've kind of written a new keynote, which is the hero inside, to really bump that up with a message I think the world really needs to hear today. Because, whether you're at mid-career, at the halftime of life, that's my audience, to maximize your skills, your experience, and your talents, and your resources. And so many people are afraid to move on, and especially now. They're afraid to, there's so much fear. Like, okay, what do we do? Can I travel? Can I get, what do I do? Where's my business at? Or what if my business is closed? Or, all of those things. There's a lot of those things that are keeping people circling in that endless roundabout. And so that's part of the message of the summit of the book I wrote, and how to be able to emerge from that, because I've had to make my own decisions and how to emerge from my roundabout in my life. I could have stayed where I was at and tried to do the gig after gig after gig and not develop more of the business. And that's one of the biggest things too, Devin, that I've learned from the speaking business and being a part of NSA, which is the National Speaking Association, is how to run a business. I was an entrepreneur. I knew how to book gigs, and I would just do another album and I'd get booked. And so I didn't understand the business part. Oh my gosh, I'm an artist, and I tell you what, there's a lot of artists like that out there that are going. They're panic. I get the emails. They're panicked. They said I had all this tour. I had everything planned. I had this new album, and everything shut down. What do I do? There, you've got to develop those multiple streams of income. You've got to develop the residuals. All of that stuff needs to happen, and that's what you're all about. I know, with your business, which is wonderful. But that's so necessary for artists, definitely.
No, and I definitely agree with all that. And I think that's really necessary for all businesses is when you're hit with something unexpected, you first of all, you have to figure out how to pivot or how to adjust it, and then building in those different streams of incomes and different sources
Right.
of revenues and expanding the business, I think are all great pieces of advice. So well, with that, now as we're kind of wrapping towards the end of the podcast, I always have two questions that I love to ask at the end of each podcast. We're going to jump to those now. So, the first question I always ask is: along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
That is that's a really good question, because when I think about my worst business decisions, I usually try to turn them into positive decisions and what can come out of it. I think some of my worst business decisions have happened because I've rushed into the project, or I've rushed getting it done, and not spending enough time really developing like the marketing plan. When I taught music business at a college course, I told them, you're doing your project is this much, and it's a lot of work, but your marketing and your plan for putting that out, it is huge. It is huge. And I think some of my worst business decisions have been in doing, particularly, I did this Christmas album that was an amazing it's a great album. I had live strings on it, live brass. It's just a beautiful album, fun arrangements. And, but the marketing aspect, I just thought, people are just going to book this show. And it just doesn't happen like that. You have to put that in place. And there's so much. I was just asked the other day, well, do you have a marketing team? And I said, oh, there's a lot you can do right now. You don't have, I might be against some of these people watching. They're going, but I'm a marketing team. I could do that for you. But there's so much that entrepreneurs can do now by yourself. You can hire those independent contractors. You can use some of that social media. You can use the ads. You can get people to write reviews, and not but they write reviews when you ask, when they read your stuff, actually read your stuff. You do not ask people to say, oh, just write me a review. They don't do. I never do that. But it's important for people to honestly. I like getting reviews that just come, that are totally organic. I just got another one the other day, and it was like, that was so, I just appreciate that so much. So because that was unwarranted, and I don't ask for them. So all of that was some of my worst of just not planning enough and having the insight, because I think I could have helped more people through that process as well. So that's a really good question. But you have to try to turn those into a positive and what you're going to do different the next time. So.
No, and I think that's definitely a great lesson to learn and a great piece of advice. So now to jump to the second question, which is, if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
I would say you have to decide to start and actually start. Because I've heard people that they've had this plan. I've known people that have been on these albums, and they've been working on the album. They've never finished them. So you have to decide to start. And then right along with that is to put some sort of date on finishing and actually launching. So I think that's a mindset. But you have to get the right help as well. And some people are afraid to ask for help or to spend the resources it takes to get the type of help they need. And when I talk to them a year later, they're still in the same place. So at deciding to start, get the right help that you need, find that, there are so many programs out there. And there's a lot of scams too, by the way. And there's a lot of a lot of just stuff out there. You got to wade through it. It's all about trust. I talk about that in my new book. I talk about trust as well and how important that is, but in the journey. But to actually, with that mindset, to actually start. And part of doing that, you just need to develop some sort of routine, whether it's journaling. I have a little program called the 90-day challenge that you just write a line or two every day. I tell you, it helps, that sort of thing, but to starting and then put an actual launch date on it that you will do it. And I think that's a big mindset. Some people, they're just afraid right now to get beyond the fear.
No, and I think that's definitely a great piece. It's interesting. I think we're either coming up on or just past 300 episodes, and I, ask the same question. We get different responses and different great piece of advice. So probably the number one answer we get more from more entrepreneurs than anything else is to just get started. Or I wish I got started earlier. Get started as quick as you can, and so you'll never regret it. And I think that there's a good takeaway there is that everybody, no matter their journey, no matter what they're doing, no matter the business or anywhere else they're at within their journey, is that they always are glad that they got started. And so I think that that's a great piece of advice of just getting started now, because even if it doesn't work out or you decide you don't like it, you'll very seldom look back and regret. I regret that you got started because you chased that dream, you found out that you loved it and it's the thing you want to do, or you found out you want to do something else. But I think getting started now is a great piece of advice. Well, as we wrap up, and if people want to reach out to you, they want to get to know you, they want to hire you for speaking, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, or find out more?
Oh, you can always contact me I have a number of websites, but I have my speaking website is deborahjohnsonspeaker.com. You can get me there. Goalsforyourlife.com. I have a lot of my online courses and all of that in there, goalsforyourlife.com. And one of the original websites I've had for years and years, probably, I don't know, maybe 30 years, 25 years, I'm going to date myself, but it's djworksmusic.com. You can also reach me through any of those sites. You can email me through that, Deborah@goalsforyourlife.com. That always works. And I would love to hear from you and mention that you heard me here. That would be so great. And Devin, this has been a wonderful interview. I love the focus of your business. And I have worked with intellectual property attorneys before, and they've saved me a couple times with some of my projects. And I really appreciate what you do. And it's very important for a creative. Any creatives listening to this, just to make sure that you got your ducks in a row.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a fun and blast to have you on. Now, for all of you listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to share your journey. You can just go to inventiveguest.com and apply to be on the show. Two more things as listeners. One, make sure to click subscribe in your podcast place so you know when all of our awesome episodes come out. And two, leave us a review so other people can find out about all of our awesome episodes. And last but not least, if you ever need help with patents, trademarks, or anything else, just go to strategymeeting.com and grab some time with us to chat. Well, thank you again, Deborah, for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure, Devin. Thanks for having me.